20,000 cups of coffee. That is what a single aircraft carrier can pour in one day, enough to fill a backyard swimming pool. Brewed and served in a metal box in the middle of the ocean, alongside 1,600 pounds of meat and 350 pounds of lettuce. Which raises a question almost nobody who hasn't served can answer. How do you feed a city of 5,000 people 4 times a day for months when the nearest grocery store is an entire ocean away? This is the question this file answers. How does a warship with no windows and no port feed a city of 5,000 people around the clock for months at a time? Everything that follows is built from the record. U.S. Navy Public Affairs, the Navy's own Supply Command, and interviews the cooks and supply officers have given from the mess decks themselves. Where a figure is a range rather than a single number, we will say so. 3 things you will learn. Why the nuclear reactor that powers the ship for decades is not what decides how long it can stay at sea. The food is. How 2 ships traveling side by side at speed pass 500,000 pounds of groceries between them without stopping. And what happened when one carrier's food service failed so badly, the photos went around the world. Start with the scale, because nothing about this is normal. A modern U.S. Navy aircraft carrier is a nuclear-powered city that goes to sea with somewhere between about 4,500 and 5,700 people aboard. Sailors, pilots, the air wing, maintenance crews, and Marines when they are embarked. That is more people than live in many small towns, packed into a single hull, and every one of them has to eat, whether the aircraft are flying or not. Here is the number that makes the rest of the film make sense. Across 4 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the midnight meal the crew calls mid-rats, a carrier serves roughly 17,000 individual meals every single day. On the USS Harry S. Truman, during a documented combat deployment, that figure ran to about 17,300 meals a day for around 5,500 people. In one day, the ship's galleys can move through 1,600 pounds of meat, 350 pounds of lettuce, 160 gallons of milk, 30 cases of cereal, and 20,000 cups of coffee. Hold that coffee number in your mind. It comes back, and it explains something about how this ship actually runs. Meet the first of our documented people. Her name is Chief Petty Officer Naomi Goodwin, and in 2018, she oversaw food preparation aboard the Truman while it launched sorties in the Eastern Mediterranean, a Navy cook with 20 years in the service. She said the hardest part of her job was not the volume. It was training cooks who arrived with wildly different backgrounds. In her words, the galley took in everyone, from chefs to people who never boiled water before. Now, the rules of this world, the physical limits that everything else has to obey, and the one the crisis will later break. The first rule is space. A Nimitz-class carrier runs its food operation through 5 separate galleys. The crew eats in shifts, staggered around the watch rotation, because 5,000 people cannot sit down at once. The second rule is time. A stove-cooked meal must be timed to the flight schedule, because when jets launch at 0200 or 0400, the galley has to feed the crews working those hours. And the third rule, the one that governs the entire deployment, is this: no food arrives in hours. Everything must be planned months ahead, loaded before departure, and made to last. The reactor can run for decades. The pantry cannot. Keep that idea close. It is the reason this whole machine exists. So follow one full cycle of how this floating city actually feeds itself. In order, because the routine is the entire achievement. It starts in the dark. The breakfast shift of cooks wakes around 300 to begin preparing the morning meal. And from that moment, the galley does not truly stop for 24 hours. These are the culinary specialists, once called mess management specialists, and a modern carrier can carry more than 90 of them. On the Truman, 114 sailors work the galleys. They pull 12 to 16-hour shifts on deployment, and on high-tempo operations that can stretch toward 18 or 20 hours. They bake, they butcher, they run sanitation and inventory, they plan the menus, and they serve. Meet the second of our documented people here, Petty Officer Second Class Brandy Royal, who cooked for the junior enlisted crew aboard the Truman. She described the shift to mass production bluntly. On deployment, she said, there is nowhere else to go, so everything is made in bulk, and versatility is survival. Then the food itself, and the sheer engineering of moving it. The meals run on a menu cycle the Navy rebuilds every 14 to 21 days, so the same dinner does not come around too often. And the cooks fight monotony with morale specials the crew learns to look forward to. Taco Tuesday, a Mongolian grill night, prime rib or lobster for a sailor's birthday. Storage is sequenced like a countdown. Fresh produce is eaten first, then refrigerated items, then frozen, then canned and dehydrated. So freshness is squeezed out of every week before the ship falls back on the long life stores. Fresh fruit and vegetables last at best 1 to 3 weeks. Fresh milk vanishes fastest of all. We open one file like this every week. Real logistics, real records. Subscribe if that's your thing. Then there is the question every viewer is quietly asking. So let's answer it plainly. Where does all this food come from if the ship never stops? The answer is one of the most impressive things the Navy does, and it has a name: underway replenishment, or UNREP. A supply ship pulls alongside the moving carrier, matches its speed exactly, and the two vessels, sailing side by side, just feet apart, string high-tension cables between them. Across those cables travels the food, anywhere from 400,000 pounds to a full 1,000,000 pounds of it, delivered every 7 to 10 days, enough to keep the whole strike group at sea for months without ever entering a port. Helicopters lift the rest, swinging pallets from deck to deck. It is a grocery delivery run at sea, at speed, by 2 warships that never slow down. And the water, because you cannot cook, clean, or drink without it. And there is no fresh water in the sea. The carrier makes its own, distilling seawater into fresh water for cooking, washing, drinking, and laundry. Even the newest ship's reverse osmosis plant is a quiet marvel. The USS Gerald R. Ford's system is documented as producing on the order of 100,000 gallons a day more than a Nimitz-class carrier can. Every meal served in the middle of the ocean starts, in a real sense, with the ocean itself. Here is the part nobody tells you. Feeding 5,000 people is only half the problem. The other half is what is left over, and at sea, there is nowhere to put it. Waste. Think about it. 17,000 meals a day generate a mountain of scraps, packaging, and trash. And a warship trying to stay hidden and clean cannot simply throw it over the side. Rules on what can go overboard depend on distance from shore, on environmental law, and on international agreements. So most of it has to be contained and processed. On older carriers, this means endless sorting and storing. a grinding, unglamorous job that never ends. But look at what the newest carrier does instead, and this is a detail almost no one outside the Navy knows. The USS Gerald R. Ford carries a plasma arc waste destruction system. A single sailor below decks can turn roughly 500 pounds of trash into almost nothing, using superheated plasma to vaporize it, sparing shipmates the miserable job of sorting and stowing garbage that continues on every other carrier in the fleet. That same relentless drive for efficiency reshaped the kitchens themselves. Where a Nimitz-class carrier runs 5 galleys, the Ford runs just 2, what the Navy calls conglomerate galleys, positioned along the ship's centerline, directly above their own storerooms, so the food drops almost straight down from freezer to fryer. The result is startling. The Ford's food service division runs with at least 90 fewer sailors than a Nimitz-class ship, and feeds the same air wing. Fewer cooks, same city, more food per hand than any carrier before it. Which brings us to the day the machine failed. And everyone saw it. Because for all the scale and all the engineering, this entire system rests on one fragile thing: getting it right, every meal, for months, with no margin. And in October 2020, on the carrier USS Nimitz, the ship the whole class is named for, it went wrong in a way that could not be hidden. An enlisted sailor took photographs of what was being served on the mess deck, then posted them. The images spread across the internet within hours. They showed meals no one should have been asked to eat. Roast beef served raw and bloody, bread edged with blue mold, eggs gone gray, the yolks, as one account described them, all but fossilized. This was not a war story. It was breakfast on a nuclear aircraft carrier, and it was inedible. Understand what that actually meant, because it is the whole point of this film. Remember the rules from the start. No resupply for days, food sequenced and rationed, sailors working longer hours with fewer breaks than anyone ashore. When the food fails on a ship like this, a sailor cannot walk to another restaurant. There is no other restaurant. There is nowhere else to go. Bad food on a carrier is not an inconvenience. The Navy's own people say it plainly. Morale, fatigue, performance, and mental health are all tied directly to what the crew eats. And these are the people running the reactor, arming the jets, and standing the watch. The Navy pushed back, and here the record demands fairness. Officials pointed out that the Nimitz had actually been recognized that same year for some of the best food service in the fleet, that these photos were a failure, not the norm. Both things are true at once. A ship can earn an award for its galley, and still, on a bad day under strain, serve a sailor a plate of mold. That is not a contradiction. It is what it looks like when a system this large, run this hard, slips even slightly. And the response tells you how seriously the Navy takes it. The next class of carrier was already being built with the fix baked in. The centralized galleys, the tighter quality control, the storerooms stacked directly beneath the kitchens. On the Ford, one detail says everything. Officers, chiefs, and junior sailors are now served the exact same food from the same source. If the seamen get fossilized eggs, so do the officers. Accountability, cooked into the architecture of the ship. Chief Petty Officer Naomi Goodwin and Petty Officer Brandy Royal were, when they spoke, doing the same thing sailors have done since the age of sail, turning raw stores into hot meals for a crew that could not feed itself. In the Eastern Mediterranean, during a real combat operation in 2018. Their names are in the record because Navy Public Affairs kept it. The USS Nimitz, commissioned in 1975, sailed on for years. After the mold photos, its galley scrutinized and improved. The ship the whole class is named for is now nearing the end of a half-century of service. And the USS Gerald R. Ford, commissioned in 2017 with its 2 centralized galleys, its plasma waste furnace, and its 90 fewer cooks, went on to deploy as a fleet flagship. The newest answer to the oldest problem in naval warfare, which was never really the enemy. It was lunch.
Count the cost of one day at sea.
Around 5,000 people, 4 meals each, roughly 17,000 plates, 1,600 pounds of meat, 350 of lettuce, 160 gallons of milk, 20,000 cups of coffee, gone by midnight. A grocery bill that on the newest carrier runs $45,000 to $65,000 a day, well over $1 million a month. Up to 1 million pounds of food passed ship to ship every week or so at speed without stopping. 90+ cooks on 16-hour shifts. And 1 plate of mold, photographed on a bad morning, that reminded an entire Navy what is riding on getting it right. That is the true weight of feeding a city that floats. A carrier is built to project power across the whole planet. But the thing that actually decides how long it can stay out there was never the reactor or the aircraft. It was whether 90 exhausted cooks could turn an ocean and a warehouse into a hot meal, 4 times a day, for as long as the mission demanded. Feed the crew, and the ship can go anywhere. Fail to, and the most powerful warship ever built has to turn for home. Their names belong in the record. That's why we keep it. The next file is on your screen now.